All right, we have been waiting for this next act to weigh in because there's just been so much insanity. The tariffs, the diplomacy, the fucking shit show. Maybe he can explain it to us, but that's a tall order. Give it up for Dave Malinsky, everybody.
Okay, I'm going to start tonight with a proverb. There's a proverb, I remember hearing it as a kid. Maybe you did. It never made much sense to me. The hand that rocks the cradle rules the world. I'll be honest, when I first heard that, I didn't get it. Did any of you guys get it when you first heard it? No, yeah, it's weird. Let me translate then. The voice that tells the children stories rules the future. That's a much better translation of that concept. You get the kids, they eventually become not kids, hopefully. And then they have their own kids, and everything continues. But of course, people, we are human beings. We tell stories, it's what we do. The first story you encounter imprints on you. Different stories imprint at different ages. I'm going to tell you about my teenage toy that I loved. Who here was around in the late 90s? A&E. Yeah. Woo! Horatio Hornblower. Anyone? Yeah. This is I'm dressed as a Royal Navy officer. And like that's like a genre. Like British Navy is like a genre, and it's there's some good entries. I'm still bitter about the Oscars 2003 when Master Commander lost out to Lord of the Rings 3. It's understandable. But all those British Navy stuff, you know the kids are on the warships, right? The kids die. You know, they bring the powder, the cannons, the powder monkeys. But here's what I found most interesting. There were young boys learning to be officers. Those were the midshipmen. The kids learning the trade. Little kids, teenagers, learning to command guys in their 20s, 30s, running the guns and the cannons and the sails and the rope. But that got me thinking, late 90s, early 2000s. What was the big news story? Padawan. Consider a young midshipman, learning about all the sea stuff. They would go through an examination for lieutenant, and then eventually they might become an admiral if they're lucky. But that's the real world. Who cares about the real world? Who cares about the past? It's fiction that matters. Jedi Padawan. They learn the ways of the Force. They become a Jedi Knight. They become a Jedi Master. Then, of course, they all die in Order 66. Then again, those midshipmen training to be Royal Navy officers, they didn't really deal with philosophy. Yes, they had all their adventures and daring do, but they didn't really consider what the philosophy of His Majesty's Navy was. But the Jedi, on the other hand, well, now, George Lucas didn't write this. Someone else did. But I wonder what you all think. There is no emotion, there is peace. There is no ignorance, there is knowledge. There is no passion, there is serenity. There is no chaos, there is harmony. There is no death, there is the Force. So that's the Jedi Creed that wasn't written until after the prequels with the Knights of the Old Republic. And when talking about Star Wars stuff, I never liked the Jedi stuff. I just didn't know mystical, who cares? But now in this day and age, I'm saying, wait a minute, hold on. This is kind of a cult of reason, isn't it? It's like, hold on. No, get all those raws. No, you gotta be calm. Yes, the emotions are there, but you gotta calm down. In comparison, here's the other side. Peace is a lie. There is only passion. Through passion, I gain strength. Through strength, I gain power. Through power, I gain victory. Through victory, my chains are broken. The Force shall set me free. That's the dark side. That's the Sith. And look, this is all meant to, sell toy lightsabers and stuff, obviously. But I firmly believe in what I call the infinite talent. That like every piece of work has value. You can get whatever lesson you want from it. Even like the ingredients on a shampoo bottle. Every piece of writing is a writing prompt. Okay. I'd be interested, you can talk amongst yourselves. Are you more of a Jedi or are you more of a Sith? We can go over and do this philosophy together. But hold on. This is a commercial product for children and teenagers. And yet people still value it. You've got people building a Jedi religion. I don't know much about it, but I love the idea of new religions forming. Thank you. Our material conditions, our communication forms, our forms of human relationships have changed. Of course, we need new religions. But that brings me to a bit of a conspiracy theory I developed, and it's a very simple one. Take a look at this. Turmoil in the toy box. What the heck is this? Some of you might remember it. Is it like a check track? Yes, it's like a check track. It is I'll keep it up just so you take a look. It is one of the primary sources of the Satanic Panic of the 1980s. I want to look, okay, obviously the Satanic Panic of the 80s was evil, but what was their justification? And it was what I expected, Kids should be in church. That is how they build our identities. The hand that rocks the cradle that rules the world is the hand with a cross in it. And in the 80s, thanks actually to Star Wars, because it was George Lucas's success with licensing that convinced Reagan, it's like, hold on, we can deregulate the FCC. We can have commercials for the toys during the toy show. and then, kids my age in the 2000s, we grew up on that. We found the internet. We made our own stories. But here's where this all comes together. This is capital dominating the church. That was the plan for the previous century. Look, churches once think, hey, Jesus is more important than capital. And then, like in the 30s, I'm like, no, guys. No. The church must ensure the proletariat does not rise. So give them all these cool stories, telling them to submit. The Navy did that too, by the way. But thanks to your Star Warses, your Masters of the Universe, your Pokémon. Actually, I got some Pokémon stuff right here, right under here. Woo. Yeah, it's Arby's Arbok. I'm not really a big Arbok fan, but I thought it was funny. But think about it. What? No, yeah, you're right. Why are all these tariffs happening? It's not an economic policy. Because the main victims of these tariffs are the toy industry. They said it. They said, oh yeah, fewer dolls. No more, and that's the point. Get rid of the hobbies, get rid of the toys, get rid of the entertainment, get rid of any cultural alternative to the church. It's all gone. They're changing the calculation. Now capital will serve the church. For mostly worse. Maybe it'll be better for the guys who run things. Well, one last thing before we go. So obviously the Star Wars thing is going to do May the 4th yesterday, but today is May the 5th, Cinco de Mayo. A bit of a history lesson. Cinco de Mayo is, it's not Mexican Independence Day, and it's not a celebration of the Mexican alcohol industry. It's actually a bit of military history. Now, military history nerds are like, yeah! We know very little, tend to know very little about, Canada or Mexico and their histories. Cinco de Mayo is when Napoleon III, the famous Napoleon's nephew, he wanted to invade Mexico. He succeeded for a while, but on the 5th of May, 1863, the Mexicans beat the French. Huzzah for Mexico!
Woo!
Yeah! Anyway, going back to the theme, children's stories defining identity. It's commercial, it's religious, it's national, but remember, we humans are questioning, exploring creatures. We can always make our own stories. Thank you.
I'm going to slow clap. So So much truth. Jedis are a cult of reason, everybody. You heard it here first. The toy industry, George Lucas is responsible for Reaganomics and the neoliberal hell that we live in. And all of the deregulation, I blame George Lucas. And give it up for that Horatio Hornblower. Oh my God, what a masterful. The Pokémon Arby's thing. Give it up for Dave Malinsky one more time, everybody. Oh my God. And that important history, that was actually very edifying for this theme, which we were kind of, fatuous about in a not cool way. But give it up for Dave Malinsky. And it's May the 4th. We could do a whole Star Wars thing. Cinco de Mayo. All right.